Hello there. I'm Liana, a full-time comic artist and writer. You might have seen my work on things like TKO Tales of Terror or Star Wars Adventures. This series is for anyone in comics, fans and peers alike. Here, I sit down and talk to all my friends in the comic industry. Welcome. Hello everyone! Today, Natasha is going to be on the stream, which is so exciting because when she started coming onto my Twitch streams, I was really excited. You know, she's in the Vault family and I have had a lot of exposure to her work, which I love, so that's been really interesting. By the way, if you like my Comics Inebriated shirt, which is the official Comics Inebriated shirt, I own two. One is yellow because I'm extra. You can buy it on our website. But without further ado, I introduce Natasha Alterici, comics creator, comics writer, comics artist.
Hello, I'm Natasha Alterici. I don't know if you guys can hear me super well because I have this crummy mic. I was on a better mic earlier, but the computer wasn't being nice to us. True story, when I was in high school drama class, everybody was supposed to have like one speaking role, like you were supposed to. It was a requirement of the class. I had one line where I was supposed to be like a newsboy and I was standing on the edge of the stage with my newspaper and I was supposed to shout out the news of the day. Nobody could hear me, so they just left me off the stage for the rest of the performances.
Oh my God.
I just did props and backgrounds and stuff, which was more fun for me anyway.
Do you think that's how you turned into like the art role of comics, like in terms of leaving theater behind you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, actually, we did one play that was like superheroes. And I got to do this big background. I basically made like, it was comic panels and all these different like characters that I just imagined with like, pow, zoom, whatever, just like nonsense comic stuff, like filling the whole background.
What year was this?
Oh my God, how old am I? So I don't like 2004 or 5 when I was in high school.
What would you say exactly got you into comics?
I lived, in a small town, so there weren't like comics around really. But no, I had to read comics for my English class, my like Comp 1.
Oh, really?
Mouse. Yeah, we had to read Mouse, and I was like floored that comics could be something like that, something very like artistic and important and heavy, and not just like superheroes,
Exactly.
So that's kind of was my intro.
Seeing as you've literally created so many like comic shorts, comic zines, series, everything. Can you like talk about some of your earlier works? Like, did you start it back in college when you started getting into comics in general?
Yeah, so like during my final year of college, I was following like the fine arts track. That was pretty much the only arts track there was. It wasn't like graphic design pretty much. And I had taken figure drawing class like too many times. I had taken like painting classes too many times, and I needed like one other credit to go towards my graduating for my degree. And there was an option for like independent study, and I decided to do it as a comic. So I basically convinced an instructor to let me draw a comic for the whole semester, and that's kind of how I got started. But I didn't ever finish that comic, and I don't think it's very good anymore. But I have it still. It's like in a closet somewhere.
Yeah, the fact that you even started it.
Yeah. There's quite a few pages that I got done. They were all just like penciled pages, but it was the process of like learning how to tell a story that way, which was kind of interesting. I liked it.
I think learning how to storytell on your own too is such a unique experience based off of who you are as a person, and then like all the media you've ingested previously.
Yeah, for sure, because I didn't like grow up reading comics really, so there wasn't anything to kind of like base it off of. So it's just sort of a blend of everything that I'm interested in, plus what I find interesting as far as like what to put on the page.
So you have a new, let's say, project that you're dropping, which I'm really excited that you wanted to talk about it on the stream, because the first question you asked me was like, do you like Killing Eve? And I was like, I've heard so much about it. I've had all my friends recommend it to me. And now that you're asking me this, now I definitely have to watch it. So tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, yes, you have to watch it. It's great. At least the first season, But if you're not familiar with the show, it's about a MI6 agent, which is like, British FBI or whatever. I don't know the equivalents, but she's a spy basically, and she is hunting down this female assassin, a brand new one that's just come on the scene, and she's this wild, crazy, interesting character who dresses her up in the highest fashion stuff you can imagine, and she takes a lot of pride and like fun in all of her kills and things, and she's also just like absolutely in love with the MI6 agent Eve, who is set to hunt her down and kill her. And so it's kind of this interesting story of like these two women like hunting each other at the same time, and it's very like queer, and it's very like kind of subverts the whole like noir genre. I think the spy thriller kind of thing, it just subverts the whole thing.
I was about to say, is it like a whole will they, won't they the entire time, or do they get pretty
there's a lot of people who complain that it's like never like it's a romance that's never like consummated, but I think all of them are very wrong about that. Well, I don't want to give away spoilers, but I
Yeah.
think that it's 100% like consummated. I think that they're like totally in love, even if they don't like become a couple or whatever.
Right, which really they can't if it's an
No, I
MI6
mean,
agent and a assassin.
and an assassin who's killed like so many people, and also if they become a couple, like what other story is there to tell? The story is about them like trying to find a way to like get to each other, so it's all about the chase.
Yeah. So that's extremely what you're digging right now, enough to base an entire project around this
Yeah, well, I
show.
mean, yeah, just the whole time I'm watching the show, and like every time you see the Villanelle is what she calls herself. Oksana is her like real name, I guess.
Mm.
Every time she's on screen, she's wearing something just amazing, like runway fashion, iconic looks, like all the time. And I'm not like a person that's like super into fashion,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's just like the combination of like this deadly figure and who's so like enigmatic and just draws you in, and just the idea of just like capturing all those looks.
Yeah.
I just needed to do it.
Seriously, y'all, even the cover, I'm like so obsessed because it has your signature. Like, I love your covers and I love your painted style. It's designed so beautifully for a zine. Natasha goes all out all the time. Are you supposed to cut the cover up? Is that part of the doll?
Yeah, I mean that's the idea.
Incredible.
I'm planning to have these printed. I got like some sample prints from Mixam. A lot of people like recommended them for printing like their own comics and zines and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I got like some samples of the paper, and it's like really thick quality stuff
Yes.
that I'm gonna do. So yeah, you would cut out the cover, and she's like a thicker cover for the figure, and then on the inside the pages are a little bit thinner, but they're still nice and crisp. And so you would cut out all those and like put them on top of her, and there's going to be on the back cover a second pose and also Eve, which I'm
Ooh!
working on right now.
When you're working on a series, do you typically script it out first and then draw it? And so you can like have TV on in the background, or are you just able to multitask all the time?
I usually do all of the scripting first, but I mean, with a project like this one, it's just drawing. There's no script. I have like two graphic novel projects I'm working on. So like I'm working on scripts for both of those, and then kind of playing with like character design and just concept design like at the same time. And then I also have just like the zine projects, which I usually am working on Patreon. So that's just whatever thing I'm obsessed with right now. That's not the project I need to be working on. It's just something else that I'm obsessed with. I'm stupidly lucky that I am at a place in my career where I just kind of get to do whatever I want and hope people are down for it. I'm lucky that most of the time people are.
Are you able to talk about any of your newer projects, like other than the zines? I really want to talk about the Victory. Yes! Okay. Let's talk about the Victory Garden one first, and then we'll go into the special stuff. How did you come to be like, yeah, I'm going to make a whole zine about, I don't exactly know what a Victory Garden is, but I know it's an actual thing that you can make, right?
Right. Well, it was a propaganda campaign from the First and Second World War, both in America and I think in the UK also and other allies. The idea was that the government was encouraging people to start growing their own food because they wanted, to have food reserves to send out to the soldiers while they were off doing their thing. And it was such a successful project that, like, at some point, I don't have the exact numbers, but I feel like it was something like 40% of the vegetables grown in America were grown in like private home gardens. And I thought that was such a wild thing, especially like today when like most of the commercial farms are like these huge vast like wastelands of just like corn and soy and wheat, and then like people just like growing tomatoes in their backyard isn't such a thing anymore. But I think it's had a resurgence, especially over the pandemic. People kind of had a little bit more time to think about like, where does my food come from, like who's growing it, what's on it, like what are some things I could get at home that I couldn't get at the grocery store, things like that. It's just really interesting to me. I'm very passionate about food.
I didn't even think about the fact that, because I know a lot of people picked up hobbies during all of this, and I think the largest thing that just stood out to me was the fact that you were like, where did it come from? I try to be conscious about what kinds of food I'm buying, like organic, local, stuff like that. You only really know what the supermarket's telling you, right? Or like what the sticker is. It's interesting. And to have such a passion for it in terms of like doing the research and everything, because I am not a history buff.
Not either.
Oh, really?
No, I just get obsessed with things. So I just wanted to learn about just Victory Garden specifically. So that's what I just delved into it. That's how I get about everything. when people ask me about like, am I in this because of Heathen, they ask if I'm like super into mythology. I'm like, no, not really. I just got obsessed for like, the time that I was working on that book. I got
Right.
super obsessed. Yeah.
Do you
Telling
have
the
like a
stories with the
major
people.
project that
Mhm.
you worked on pre-Heathen that like still stands out to you that's like still available?
I don't know if they're still available. The two projects that I did before Heathen, I mean, besides like a short comic that I did, which is free on my Gumroad store, Girls Don't Like Dinosaurs, you can go get it if you want. I worked on a couple of projects with some local writers. One was called Lucid with my friend Tim Barry. It was this weird, like layered dream thing. It was only the first issue that we got done, but it was a super interesting story, and I had a lot of fun just like playing with the style of it and just sort of flexing, and figuring out how to make a comic.
Yeah.
And then after that, I did a little project called Illustrated Girl with a writer named Jackson Compton. And that one was about this girl who could, whatever she would draw on her skin would like come to life. So it was kind of like her little superpower, but it was such a quiet, kind of meditative story. And there was this weird sci fi kind of fantasy thing to it. Like she had these weird demon monsters in her dream that were trying to come out like through her skin somehow. It was interesting. It was really interesting and fun to draw.
That's such a cool concept. You also have a zine about macarons.
Oh, yes.
It looks so
Macarons.
cute. It's how to make them and why you shouldn't.
Yes, I'm a foodie too. I like to bud cook. I wasn't very confident with baking for like a long, long time, but just like on a whim at a bakery, I tried a macaron for the first time ever, and I thought it was the most delicious thing I'd ever eaten. And then I was like, I need to learn how to make these. And it was such
Of
a
course.
challenging, frustrating experience. They're so difficult and like
You pick
temperamental.
the
Oh,
most complicated thing to
yeah,
bake of all time.
that's how I like to do things.
Yeah,
Just go all out,
go big or go home, apparently.
Right. So
Oh
I
my
thought I would at
gosh.
least, help other people avoid my mistake or at least get some instruction before they go all for it.
I really appreciate and respect when comic creators can take time away from doing monthlies or OGNs or anything like that and actually spend time on smaller projects or like things that are still ingestible or like content heavy. And I just find it fascinating that you've been able to do that much like on the side with how much you've been doing. So I love them. You all should be buying them right now. Gumroad. If I don't see
Well,
you picking up at least one of these books for $2, I swear to God, y'all. I'm just kidding.
I think it's just kind of necessary, especially for like a career like comics where you're expected to put something out every month, like a full comic book, 22 pages in a month is a lot to do.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're just writing it, it kind of can drain you really, really fast. And I think it's important for an artist or any kind of creator to just like allow themselves to get bored a little bit.
Yeah,
You need
absolutely.
time to recharge and find the things that are interesting to you and put all your passion into that.
So for the big reveal, no one knows what's up. What you been working
That's
on?
true. I've been very sneaky and quiet about these. Okay, I have two graphic novels that I'm working on. The first one is a horror story. Well, both of these are set in a small town in Oklahoma because I want to get back to my roots. So
I
first one is
appreciate that.
it's a horror story, and then the second one is kind of a punk romance story. I don't want to like give anything away because again, I'm still
Yeah.
writing.
Are you planning for these to be graphic novels?
The hope is to do graphic novels for each, and I want to draw one of them, but I don't know if that's going to be possible. I have carpal tunnel, and it like kind of destroyed my hands, so that's another reason I kind of like stepped back from art a little bit. I'm hoping that I can get surgery this year to correct it.
Well, that's really exciting. I can't wait to hear more specifically about the horror one because I love hometown horror stuff all the time.
It's a little bit Silent Hill meets like Big Little Lies. Our main character is a 16-year-old super evangelical Christian girl. She's very straight-laced and she believes very much, and then a scandal breaks out in a church where the preacher is accused of sexual assault. And so she then has to reckon with all of that, and at the same time she starts hallucinating these like demons and things. It's a little intense.
Oh, I love this so far. This is wild. Did you grow up religious?
Oh, yes. I said the other day, I was like, if Wildflowers is the romance one, if that one is like my love letter to like my small town, then Sinners, the horror one, is like the hate letter. It's like, here's all of the things that were awful, and here's all the things that I love.
Robert Wilson is in the chat and he
Hi,
asked, "Hey,
Robert.
how do you like to write comics?" I find that I cannot thumbnail before scripting, and I'm curious if you can separate text story brain and visual storytelling brain.
It's kind of like a mishmash of both. I mean, I feel like I'm always like writing first. Like, that's the part that finishes first. I don't do thumbnailing until the script is done. And I'll usually change the script as I'm thumbnailing, but that's always after the script is done. But as far as like the visuals, that's the first thing for me. I build a Pinterest board of things that I'm like, okay, it's got to look like this. We're going to throw in a little bit of this and that. I have Pinterest boards for like every project I've ever done, except for Heathen because I wasn't on Pinterest before then. I have some kind of little brain worm, something that gets in, and I need to like figure out how to tell a story about it or how to make a zine about it, whatever it is, whatever the thing is that I'm going to be obsessed with. And then I start building a Pinterest board. I start thinking of what the story could be if it's going to be a narrative thing. And I'll fill like notes in my phone. I'll just throw things in there. I'm like, oh, this could happen, or maybe this person and this person, and here's a character and whatever. Just any little idea that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Throw it all together until eventually I have like a kind of vague idea of what the story can be. And then it's like a process of writing like a pretty general plot point, just like bullet points of like, okay, we start here and then this happens and then this happens and here's the big crescendo and here's how it could end. Maybe ending
It's like
is
slight
always last.
outline.
Yeah, like a pretty loose outline. And then from there, I start to build a script. I might start like designing characters and stuff in there too. If I plan to draw it, which for Wildflowers, I would love to draw that one. I've already been designing characters, so that it would be great if I could do that one.
That's awesome. Yeah. When you write and draw for yourself, do you typically draw layouts or do you just go straight to pencils because you already know?
Oh, I would do the layouts. Yeah, that's the thumbnails. Those are my favorite part. I never, ever, ever skip those.
What made you decide to like write and draw? Because obviously you were in fine arts. Like what made you be like, yeah, I can do the storytelling part too?
I used to think that, I was just an artist and not a writer. Like even as I was like writing Heathen, I was only really writing Heathen because I wanted to draw it. I was like, I want to draw this character and I need to draw her whole world, the forests and the horses and the Vikings and Valkyries and everything. Like I was like, I want to draw this. I want to make it happen. And nobody else is going to write it for me. So I'll just do it myself. But I like look back, like as a kid, like I was writing stories all the time. I had a little typewriter I wrote a story on once, and I was writing stories for like my friends to read in high school. None of them were any good, but I was always doing it. So it kind of doesn't make sense that I never thought of myself like as a writer until like recently.
Avery Kaplan asks, was there any particular symbol that you especially enjoy subverting in Heathen?
Okay, something I thought that was interesting to kind of like do a different take on anyways were the mermaids. My friend Harper, a young lady who's a daughter of one of the original editors for Heathen, she was the one that helped me design the mermaids, and she said they shouldn't have boobs. That doesn't make any sense. And I was like, you're right, it doesn't make any sense. They're not like mammals, they're like fish. So she helped me subvert that, and she wanted to make sure, she's like, they should help Thetis, but they should like, not do it for free. They should like have to get something in return. And I was like, okay, sure, we'll make that happen. So I just loved like finding all these like interesting like mythological characters and just doing a different take on it, like a kind of human take on them, little tricksy, interesting characters. That's my favorite thing with any genre, is just playing with the characters,
I do love the way you design the mermaids.
You can thank Harper for that.
Oh, thank you, Harper. Just a reminder, everyone, you can find Natasha at Alterici on most of her platforms. Instagram, I think, is Alterici_art, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Cool. You can also pick up all of her zines and stuff on Gumroad, and you can order Heathen from your local comic shop. Did I miss anything?
Oh, I have a Patreon, if anybody.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, the perks of that are that you get to see the things come together, and you'll get a free PDF of whatever zine I finish next, and access to all the other ones too.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope everyone is safe and vaccinated, and you take care of yourself this week. Drink a ton of water. Hang out with your family if you can. Get those hugs in at least. Mask up, do whatever. Do it safely. And with that, we end you all. See you all soon.